Thanks, Aaron. My name is Steve Mullen. I am an alcoholic. Through the grace of God, the power of the simple program, and you fine people, I've been given this precious gift since August the 12th of 1989, and for that I am extremely grateful. I hope I don't spill on the equipment and start a fire, which I've done before, and I'm going to set my timer because I will talk way over if I don't. So, my wife's here, and Krista, and she is happy I'm on a timer probably. So anyway, thank you guys for having me. Lisa, I know she's not here, but I really appreciate her asking me to participate. It's always an honor. And Mark, glad you're here. This is weird for me. I always get a little nervous doing this, even though I've done it a lot. And I swore to myself when I was really new, I had a few months, and I was in a meeting one time, a speaker meeting, and I realized that one day they were going to ask me to speak, and that was going to be the day I left, because there's no way I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it. You'll figure out I'm a phony, and, just whatever. And so I'm glad that didn't work out that way. I'm glad I stayed. So I usually takes me about 40 minutes to get warmed up and to get sober. So I'm going to try and get sober a little quicker today and just share with you a little bit about my experience, strength, and hope, most of which has been in sobriety. You may not be able to tell, but you may be able to deduce that I sobered up a little bit young, and that's correct. I was 16 years old. And I turned 16. Fortunately for me, I failed my driver's test. And so I had to wait to get my driver's license for a while. And between then and when I got it, I got put in treatment. So I never drove drunk or legally before I got here. People talk about drinking in bars. I never had that experience. I've been in bars, but I never drank in them. Just a lot of things. I didn't lose jobs because of my drinking because I never had one. Just things like that. I don't know. But when Lauren read how it works, our adventures before and after make clear, these ideas. And I've had a lot of adventures after. I really have. And I've stayed sober through it all. And I've stayed active and stayed close to Alcoholics Anonymous. And God, I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. And I have so many friends. And my life today is just really extraordinary. And it's not always easy, but, it's simple in a lot of ways. And the only thing that complicates it is my mind, right? And what I've come to understand in Alcoholics Anonymous is everything is always fine. It's always well. The only thing that tells me it's not is my thinking. And I can just be going along, and my day can be wonderful, and somebody can do something, or I can see something, and sometimes nothing has to happen. Sometimes it being fine is the problem. It's like I always have to have a hand back here stirring it up, just to keep, I can't, my sponsor says, if you're bored and you don't have much going on, that's called serenity. You'll get used to it. So anyway, we're on this spiritual path, and I'll just to backtrack a little bit. I grew up here in Dallas, just north of here, a couple miles up near the Galleria, before the Galleria was there, and I was born and raised and got sober in the same house, which is weird, but I'm weird, so that's fine. And I had a really very normal dysfunctional childhood. It's nothing too crazy, but nothing. It wasn't necessarily June and Ward Cleaver. But no real reason to be alcoholic, right? And when I first got sober, it was back in the day. There was a lot of therapy stuff going on, and I really was interested in finding out why I was an alcoholic and what did my parents do to screw me up, because obviously this isn't my fault, And I was really lucky to have some old timers here that said, "Listen, I got good and bad news for you. The bad news is this is all your fault, right? It's all your fault. The good news is it's all your fault, right? Because if it's not your fault, man, you're screwed. There's just nothing you're going to be able to do. So that was a real blessing to have that, and the old timers and my sponsor in the early days, and still to these days. It's weird. I have a new home group. My new home group is the Simply A group in Irving. And I went to a meeting there, and I loved it. It's right down the street from my house, and COVID changed a lot of things. But my old home group was the Clean Air group across town, and I still love it. My mom goes there. A lot of my friends go there. But I found a place a little closer to home, and I can be active there and involved. And I have the most sobriety, which is weird. I've always been the youngest guy in the room and not the most sobriety, and it's very strange to be in that position. But I also know that I'm just an alcoholic. That's one of the things when I came in that I was really young. You were all old, really old. If you were 21, you were old to me, so. And I was really blessed to have somebody say, look, don't be different here. That'll kill you, right? Just be a regular alcoholic and just be one of us. Don't be a young person in AA. Don't be a this or a that or whatever. Just be an alcoholic and you can make it here. And they treated me that way. It was a real blessing because, man, from the earliest age, I felt different, right? From the earliest age, I just felt like everybody else got the memo. I didn't get the memo. You all seemed happy. You looked happy to me. You looked like you had it together. You knew what was going on, and I just didn't. And it didn't matter what environment I was in, whether it be like church or school or, in the neighborhood. And so I just did what I just didn't know. I like to think that I was born on a dry drunk, combined with a midlife crisis, and I had that all growing up, man. That's how I felt. Just like, I gotta have this and that and fit in. Everybody's gotta like me and all this, that, and the other. And, my parents did a good job. I mean, they sacrificed. They sent me to schools and did this stuff. And I was semi-smart and athletically semi-gifted. So I just, it was fine. It was really fine around me, And if anybody looked at me and said, he's fine. But in my head, man, I was not fine. Like I said, I was restless, irritable, and discontented. And about 10 or 11, I don't remember exactly when because I was 10 or 11, and early 80s, right? And I was in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I had my first experience with alcohol. I'm not sure if it was my first drink, but it was the first time that I felt, it was the first time alcohol, I experienced it in a way that was a miracle. I had a few drinks. I was in this giant ballroom, and I was with this old guy, Nick, who was like 12, and he said, listen, we're going to get in there, and we're going to get this champagne and wine off these tables, big ballroom, and he said, this stuff is weak, so we need to drink a lot of it. So we did that, and I mean, just all that restless, irritable, and discontent, all that stuff it melted away. It was like the world just went into Technicolor, and I'm like, oh my God. This is amazing. No wonder people do this and blah, blah, blah. And it was really a spiritual experience in a way. It was really a spiritual experience for me. And it turns out that they have a name for that. We have a name for that here in our big book. And that is called an abnormal reaction to alcohol. Okay? That is not the way most people feel when they have a few drinks. Right? It may make them feel good, and like my father says, well, I get, I feel a little relaxed and everything, but if I have too much or if I drink too fast, I start to feel out of control, and I don't like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? That's when the magic starts, right? Feeling it is the deal. And so I didn't know. And I thought, I'm going to do that as often as I can, which, at 10, 11, that's not as often as I would have liked. But, things happened for me. I had a higher power working for me at that time. My next door neighbor was a friend of mine, and his parents, I don't think they were alcoholic, but they used to order Old Charter bourbon by the pallet. And so I had a lot of, I had access, and so I just progressed, and it didn't take long for me to be just full blown, and then you threw in all the drugs, and I did a lot of that, and by the time I was 14, 15, I was just daily, and I had some experiences. I started to have bad experiences. I somehow kept out of really major trouble just because I didn't get caught, One time where I had to be entrepreneurial at my freshman year of high school, and because I didn't have a job, but I needed to make some money, so I started to sell some things, and there was somebody that what was that? Did I break something? Okay, all right. Anyway, so I was trying to sell this stuff, and some guy came and said, "Hey, I want to get this from you." And I said, "Okay, meet me here and there." And this was my first time I had some sort of a spiritual thing happen to me, and I didn't know it was at that time, but this guy came up to me, and I had what I was going to sell him, and he had a wad of money in his hand, and I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have it. I couldn't get it, and I'm sorry." And I don't know why I was saying it. As I was saying it, I'm like, something's going on here. And that was the day before Christmas break of 1988. And we came back, and 29 people got arrested. And it turns out he was an undercover narcotics officer. And I just had this weird experience, and I don't know why I didn't get in trouble. I mean, I was underage, so it would have probably not been a big deal, but I don't know. It would have been a felony because it was a federal offense what I was selling. So just things like that. And I was starting to feel a little desperate because I knew that sobriety was so uncomfortable for me. And it was really quickly stopping becoming fun. And I never had this issue where it was like I tried to drink like a normal person. I never had that. I finally found a group of people, and to fit in there, just the more screwed up you were, the better. And I loved that. I could excel at that. And so I just never had this thing about our literature says, well, some of us want to return to normal living. Well, I never had any of that ever, so. But that led to a few things and to a period of desperation. And I had, I had a moment where I decided I was going to stop, right? And I had a little something happen that was, some of our bottoms are different. You can compare yourself to others, but the truth is that whatever it is, it's personal to you. And mine was just coming out of a blackout one day, and I was in a 7-Eleven, and I was a mess. I dressed terribly. Just when I dressed nice, I looked terrible. I just was a little punk rocker kid, and then I had come to, and I'd thrown up on myself, and so I looked even worse than how I usually looked worse. So I was in this 7-Eleven, and a group of kids came in, and they knew me, and the looks on their faces, they didn't say anything to me. I was half drunk, and I just through the fog, just remember this one girl, the look on her face, she was horrified. And I can't explain to you why that was my, that was my wake-up call. I don't know why that was that, but I thought, I'm going to die. And I saw it. I saw it. I just saw this devastation and destruction if I didn't do something different. So, and at that point, my brother, who was younger, had put into treatment. My mother was starting to go to AA, and this was in the spring of 89. And what I had decided to do, they had a great program back then in the mid-'80s and late '80s, and it was started by none other than Nancy Reagan. It was a one-step program, and it was just say no. Just real simple, 3 little words. I'm like, man, easy, So that was the deal. I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start tomorrow, and that's what I'm going to do. So I tried that, right? I tried the one-step program, and I tried it for a while, and I don't know how long a while was. It could have been 3 or 4 weeks. It could have been 3 or 4 months, but at some point, I couldn't do that. And I tried every day, and I would wake up and say, I'm going to try harder. And finally one day I said, I'm going to try with every fiber of my being. And like an hour passed or something before I couldn't do it. I was so uncomfortable, and I didn't know about this mental obsession, right? I didn't know that once I started, I couldn't stop, but that the real problem was I couldn't start not starting again. I couldn't stop not starting. And no matter what reason I had, no matter what logic I could use in my brain, there was going to come a time, sober, where my mind just said, you can do it, you can have it, or it's okay, or just F it. I mean, one of those things was going to happen, and I was going to go. So I surrendered that day to alcohol, and I just said, well, I'm just going to go on as long as I'm going to go. And I don't know if that's weeks, months, years, I don't know. But unfortunately, through a series of events, I got put into an inpatient treatment center. And when I found out I was going, I remember thinking, at least I'm going to be sober for 30 days. Like, I knew that that was the only way. Like, lock me up, take me away from my environment, because I just couldn't do it. And at the end of the month, this was back when you could go to treatment for as many times as you wanted, and forever. You could be in treatment for years if you wanted to be, and you could go 38 times. It's not that way now. But fortunately, I went to the inpatient, and then they sent me to this outpatient adolescent unit with these crazy kids, and I didn't feel like I fit in there. And they started taking us to some meetings, and I thought, some of these folks are interesting. I mean, they're old, but they're interesting. And I don't know if any of you were here yesterday, if you heard Reno John, anybody here? Anyway, it was a wonderful meeting, and he talked about, he just talked about, well, I don't know where I was going with that. He said something that I thought about, but anyway, yeah. So anyway, I came in, he went to meetings where I went to meetings, so I would see things like him, people like that, and I would think, wow, man, they're really interesting and all that, and I related to some of them, but I thought, I don't know, I'm just not 100% sure if I'm really an alcoholic. And I'd read the book a little bit, and I'd be like, some of this language, and war fever ran high in the old town. All right, that's come on. Couldn't come out with a more updated, thing. And I don't know. I just thought, whatever. And I didn't know what they were saying. And they were like, spirituality. I'm like, that's for when you're old, spiritual. I'm busy and I got to make stuff happen now. And so but I kept coming. And fortunately, I was in this treatment center, and which was fortunate because I started my sophomore year of high school, right after I picked up my Desire chip. So that's not really super conducive to that, nurturing sobriety environment. But I really did have some things that happened that were kind of miracles. When I look back, I mean, there were some people in that high school that started going to the outpatient treatment center I was in. And so I had some people that were sober there. And we'd go to meetings in the counselor's office or whatever once a week. And so it was really pretty cool. But I still I was very uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable around people my age or people not my age, which is everyone. But I went, and because I was scared not to. I was more scared not to go. And I would go, and I'd listen to these people, and I'd think, I don't know. And there's a guy, Sandy Beach, and I know a lot of you know who he is, and he shares about being clear about my alcoholism. And it says in the big book, we have to admit to our innermost selves that we're alcoholic. And that's really the first step in recovery. And it's important to do that, because if I'm not clear, then I will suffer from the delusion that I'm almost an alcoholic, And he talks about the consequences of almost being an alcoholic. We'll almost go to enough meetings. We'll almost take the steps. We'll almost get a sponsor. We'll almost do the things we need to do. The same as if I jump out of an airplane and almost grab a parachute, right? If you're somebody like me, that is the consequences, because One of the things that the book and everybody sharing their experience, strength, and hope made it crystal clear to me was that my life was going to end up one of four ways. I was either going to die an alcoholic death, be locked up in an institution or jails, prisons, or I was going to die sober. I mean, that's it. There's like no other option than that. And that was, I was still unsure. And then one night I was working, I got this little job, I got out of treatment, I was working at this grocery store, and I got out one night, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, and in the same parking lot at that grocery store, it was at Forest and Inwood, there was a group called the Trinity Group. I'm sure some of you remember the Trinity Group. And I didn't go to the Trinity Group because my mother went there. I'm sure none of you have issues with your mother, but I did not want to go. I was 16, I didn't want to go to meetings with my mother. So anyway. But it was a speaker meeting, so I thought, I'll go, right? So I went, and there was a room that was, it was a big room. You walk in, they set it up this way on purpose, I know, because when you walk in, you're kind of in the middle of the room, and coffee's way on the other side, so you have to walk all the way across, and I'm walking in, and they're reading how it works, and I grabbed coffee, I sit down, and they said, our speaker tonight is Lim W. And the oldest man on the planet gets up. And I just was extremely disappointed. I thought, I've wasted my night here. I'd be home playing Atari. And this guy he gets up, he's had a stroke, so he's got a cane, and he walks up. And I just thought, I've made a terrible decision, and there's no way that this is going to be good in any form or fashion. And, like I've been wrong 100,000 times in sobriety, this guy gets up there and, he tells my story. He shares everything that he thought and felt, I thought and felt, right? And, it just blew me away because I thought, for sure, there's going to be nothing good gained from this meeting. And he just shared, and it just hit home. And it was the first time it cleared away any of the doubts, right? And I knew absolutely I was in the right place, and that I was an alcoholic. And, more importantly, and I didn't realize it then, but I realized it a long time later, the other thing that he gave me was he gave me the hope that I could be sober and happy. Because up to that point, I thought, it's over. We're all given our allotment of joy and happiness, and I used it up, right? And people would say, oh, you're so lucky to be here at such a young age. And I'd be like, what in the hell are you talking about? I should just be starting to have fun. All these other people that I know are just starting, and here I am, and it's over. Like I may be able to stay sober, probably not, but maybe. But if I do, it is not going to be good. And I'm very uncomfortable, and I just had never experienced being sober and happy. And I'm so grateful. I got in with a group of people who were active in AA. They were taking the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They were living it in their life, and they taught me how to do it out of our big book and literature. And because it says, in the 12 and 12, and I've heard this said a bunch more, and which is great because I, for some reason, hadn't heard it for a long time, but I've started to hear it more. More and more people mention the thing that it says in the 12 and 12 about what the steps are. All right? And the steps are, it's defined as a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to live happily and usefully whole. Right? And I thought I don't know what that looks like, right? In my mind, I immediately made up that, what happiness is you get what you want. That's what I came away from childhood thinking you got to be smart and you got to work hard so that you can get a bunch of stuff. And then when you get a bunch of stuff, you can have a bunch of stuff and you can accomplish a bunch of stuff and then you'll be happy. That's what I made up, and I made that up, and I brought some of those ideas to Alcoholics Anonymous. It says our old ideas. Well, I have new old ideas. I just make them up, right? Nobody has to teach me. I just come up with an idea and say, this is the way it's got to be. And I won't check with anyone. I won't say, you think this is a good idea? No, I'll just say, I think I'll just base major life decisions off of this thought, the idea that I've had. So I did that. I did that for a lot of years. I was lucky to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and start to take the steps. But a lot of that for me was just, I don't know. I didn't get it. I thought I'm going to work the steps so that I can get the stuff and be happy. Because I hear speakers get up and they talk about I'd hear the Clancys of the world and all these big people get up and talk about their destruction they had in their life. And then they came in and worked the 12 golden steps and now they have all this wonderful stuff in life and blah. And I didn't really hear the other things they were talking about, the spirituality. I didn't know what unmanageability meant. I thought unmanageability was this managing and keeping a job and all this stuff. I didn't know that, no. Unmanageability is you can't live life and not be restless, irritable, and discontent, sober or not, right? I can't function in the world without this thing going bazonkers. I can't function without this thing just driving it won't shut up. It's 24/7, 365. And it's my thoughts and feelings that are unmanageable, and I can't, and what that stems from, I know now, is this thing that they taught me about. And they said, Steve, you're extremely self-centered. You are self-will run riot. And what that means is that if you are extremely self-will run riot and you're self-centered, the only way you can be happy in that situation, it looks like, is if everything goes your way. Right? That's the only way you can be happy in that situation. And that means everybody's got to act right. They got to do the things you think is right. Of course, you got to have enough money. And of course, you can get all the money in the world. It's still not enough, right? Because there's always more. That's the real crux of the self-centered mind like mine, is that the answer to everything is always more or different or something. But whatever it is, the answer is always out there. It's always, I must change out there, one way or another. And God, that is hard work. That is really difficult work, I mean, it's like, I've got to make sure, I got to get Putin in line. Right? I mean, I'm over here in this basement of the church, and he's over there. It's insane. It's insane to live that way. But I do, and I still can do that today, but I said, dude, you got to be rid of this selfishness, or else it kills us, So the question is, well, how do I do that? Well, there's this thing called a higher power. You're going to want to try and get in touch with that, And unlike the first step where it talks about this absolute certainty, right? I'm so glad they were patient with me, because I had a lot of hang-ups about the higher power. I knew they were talking about this God, and I had a bad experience with that, and I didn't want to, I was just nervous. I thought, I see the people who really I saw step 3, turn your will and life over, and I thought, I don't know, it sounds like I'm, can you still bowl? If I turn it over, am I going to be do you just give all your money away? There was a skit on this. There's this group about, there's this YouTube video, and there's this group of people, and it's this joke, spoof skit or whatever, and they're sitting around and they're praying. They're like, God, please, God, just communicate with us and tell us, what is your will for us? And this voice comes over, is like, hello, and they're like, oh my God. And they're like, give all of your things away and help to the poor and, be celibate. And they're like, whoop. And they kind of look at each other and they're like going, what was that, God? And it's like, give all your things away and give all your money to the poor and, be celibate. And one of the guys goes, this place is haunted. And then they all run out, And that's what I thought, It's crazy. Anyway, so this is what I think. And I think, I'll turn over this drinking, right? But obviously, it's not going to work with all this other stuff. And one of the things that I noticed pretty early on is no matter what problem I see, back then, this is before they got smart, sometimes the chair, I'd go to the meetings and they'd say, does anybody have a topic? And that's a terrible idea. We don't do that anymore for good reason, right? I mean, you have the strangest topics when that happens, right? So, I'd bring up topics, be like, she left, and so one of the things that you notice pretty early on, especially if you get a sponsor, is they say the same thing. Like, it seemed like no matter what problem I had, right? Well, no money. You're going to take the steps with a sponsor. You're going to go to meetings. You're going to read the books. You're going to work with others. You're going to be of service. And they're like, well, what is that? Where's the part in that about the money? When does the money arrive? Don't worry about that. Do this other stuff. And, of course, that's the answer, right? That's the answer to there's not enough money is do this stuff, and then somehow it works out. And then she left me or whatever, What do I do now? Well, you got extra time. You're going to go to more meetings. You're going to take the steps with a sponsor. You're going to be of service. You're going to, read the books. You're going to carry the message. And it's always the same damn solution, And I'll never forget the first time I heard Sandy Beach talk about this. And he said, because I argue with that. I'm thinking, no way. If you want me to list out my problems, I'm going to have 1,000 problems, and there's got to be 1,000 unique solutions for all that. And he said, no, there's one problem that solves all that, right? And if there is a group of people that should never dispute one solution for all problems, it is us, right? Because what did we do before we got here? One solution for all problems. No matter what's going on, a few drinks, no problem. And nothing out there changed, nothing out there in the world changed. And we can do the same thing. It turns out we can do the same thing spiritually through the 12 steps that we did with alcohol, right? And we just don't destroy our lives and those about us. We can do it constructively and spiritually, but it's very difficult because living a spiritual way of life is completely counterintuitive to the way I think it should be done, If a thing comes up in my life, I think, problem. This is my responsibility. God will not do for me what I can't do for myself. So let me get out my thinker and let me try and solve this problem and see if I can't fix it. And it seems like that's the logical way, You got to identify the problem and do the thing and da-da-da-da-da. And when the real solution is let go, they say let go. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And, it turns out that there's this power here that we have to tap into. And that's also counterintuitive because I think to myself, okay, I need to learn the proper way and learn the skills in order to connect with this power. And it turns out that's wrong. Right? It's like, no. Well, how that's going to work is you are going to grow spiritually and get closer to this higher power by removing the things that block you from this. And what will happen, Steve, is, see, what you don't understand is there is this power already deep within you, right? And it says in We Agnostics or wherever it is that, it's the great reality lies deep within, okay? And it's already there. I just have to get all of the old ideas and the crap out of the way for it to come out. I have mistakenly thought all my life that I am supposed to clear this channel so that I can get to God. And what I'm really doing is I'm clearing this channel so that God can come out. And Chuck Chamberlain used to say, what you come looking for, you come looking with. Okay? And there's examples of that. There was a guy that spoke at the anniversary here last year, Bob, or whenever that was, Bob B. And he said one time that you're ever sitting there in a meeting and somebody says, or wherever, and you hear somebody say something, and you've never heard it before, ever. But you know that it's the truth. You know it, just in your soul. And the question, he said this one time when he was sharing, he said, why do you think that is? Where do you think that comes from? It's because we all came here knowing we already came here with what we need and what we need to have. We're just it's so clouded by our heads and what we think and blah, 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 and our old ideas. That if we can let some of that stuff go, we uncover, discover, and discard those things. That stuff we connect with it. And one of the other examples I had of that was when I had my daughter. Well, I didn't have her. But I contributed. And I've raised her. She's 19 now, and she's beautiful. And she's living life. And but when she was really young, I remember sitting there one time. And I was going through, I had about 14 or 15 years of sobriety. And my life was coming unraveled. I was getting divorced from my first wife, and I had built this life up, right? And I had really gotten I got everything that I thought would make me happy. I had the nice house, I had the job and the money and all that, but I knew it was enough. I should be happy, and I was not happy. So I started saying these prayers about, God, I don't care what my life looks like anymore. I just want to be of service and be happy, and that's it. And so my life completely unraveled. And as my wife says, sometimes it seems like it's coming apart, but it's coming together. I didn't realize that's what was going on then, but I got to spend this time with my daughter, and I only have a few minutes left, but I was sitting there holding her, and she was 9 months, 6 months, and I had this unbelievable love. And I've never felt that for any human being ever. And I cannot, there's no other way. It's just something special between a parent and their child. And it hit me. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to take care of this little girl no matter what. I don't care if she ends up on the serial killer podcast as the, topic. I don't care. I'm still going to love her, right? No matter what. And it's this overwhelming feeling. It's like, oh my God. And I knew in that moment that, I didn't learn that. How did I get this? Where did that come from? And it just suddenly dawned on me that, could only come from this power that they've been trying to tell me about, right? Turn our will and life over to the care, right? Over to the care of God as we understood him. And I began to understand that there was something out there caring for me. And when I stopped long enough and started to look back at the results of this living sober and trying to do it, I saw that I could not dispute the miracles, right? I kept seeing these miracles happen, and some of them were slowly, some of them quickly, but they kept happening. And that's the one beauty about Alcoholics Anonymous. These steps work whether you believe in them or not. They work regardless. But it's very important. It was pounded into my head that this is not a program for people who need it. It's not a program for people who want it. It's a program for people who do it. I have to put these actions and these steps into my life, or I will not have the experience. And that is one of the things it's a constant reminder, right? There's a lot of cool things in AA. And today we're blessed with these amazing ability. We can go to meetings now because of the COVID. We can go to meetings 24/7, 365. Just log in, man, right in your underwear on the couch. Spirituality coming at you 24/7. And it can feel like that's recovery. And I fall this trap all the time. I feel like because I'm reading the stuff and I'm seeing the meetings and I'm going to the meetings and I'm reading the books or whatever, that I'm doing it. And there's a difference. I can get so distracted with that I'm not taking the steps, right? I'm not actually trying to connect. Because I think really what's happening for me in step 2 is I'm coming to believe, but I'm only coming to believe so that I can come to rely. Right? If I'm not able to do that, it's I'm not gonna last, and I have to remember that the only way I'm going to get there is by going through the rest of the steps. And this really, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And I was not. It just took me a long time to really get thorough with it and to do it with this desperation. John said something yesterday that I can forget. I've been around a long time, and a lot of times I do these spiritual things because I'm inspired to. I want to be a better person and blah, 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 and I want to grow, and I want to have a better marriage and a better work and do. And my wife and I just have this amazing life together. We have this beautiful business we've made and our house, and it's a lot of work, but it can be distracting. And I just get into this thing, and I have to remember that the basic premise is this, I have to stop and I have to do the work. And to get in there and let go. And my sponsor says something all the time, and he says, come all the way in, sit all the way down, And very early on, and I'm going to close with this, and I'll shut up. I was sitting. I had a few minutes. I had a few months, and I was at this group of kids, and we were outside at this little impromptu meeting, and this was another spiritual experience that I had, but I was very unsure about you people and coming in, and I don't know. I can only just tell you that it was the voice of this power, but I was just having these doubts, and it just came in. It said, if you just keep coming here and doing this stuff, excuse me, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And it was loud. It was, so loud in my head that I looked around. Anybody hear that? And I heard it. And I just decided to believe it. Right? And every belief I have is a decision one way or another. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious. But I decided to believe in Alcoholics Anonymous and just to do it to the best of my ability. And thank God for a couple of spiritual principles, right? Your best is always good enough here in the spiritual world. No matter how bad your best may be. Some of us, my best was bad. I'm telling you right now. I was 16. I just was not good at it. But I gave it my best, and it worked, and it changed, and I found this power that I try and rely on. And I hope that you do too. And I love all you guys, and thank you so much for having me.